What if the UK is betting its energy future on a single massive project hidden in the Scottish Highlands? A project so huge it promises to solve one of the nation's biggest problems. But what if that same project is a ticking time bomb, a gamble so bold that it risks becoming just another monument to failure? In the vast, rugged landscape of the Scottish Highlands, the UK is diving into one of the most ambitious and controversial engineering projects in its modern history. This isn't just a power station. It's a giant water battery, a man-made wonder designed to support the nation's increasingly shaky green energy grid. The vision is incredible. The numbers are staggering. But behind the promises of a clean energy revolution, there's a darker story, one of immense risk, terrifying costs, and a long troubled history of grand designs turning into financial nightmares. This is the story of the UK's 1.8 gigawatt gamble, a project that could secure its energy independence or drag it into a multi-billion-pound mess. So, why would the UK even consider a risk this big? To get it, you have to understand the fundamental flaw at the heart of its green energy plan. For decades, the country has been chasing a future powered by renewables. The North Sea, once an oil and gas hub, is now sprouting forests of steel, some of the world's largest offshore wind farms. Solar panels glisten in the rare British sunshine. It's a green dream, but one with a dangerous paradox. What happens when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine? That's the Achilles heel of renewable energy. You can't turn it on and off. The grid is a finely balanced machine where supply has to meet demand every single second. But wind and solar power are unpredictable. They make electricity on their own terms, not always when we need it most. This creates wild swings. On a windy, sunny day, the UK can produce more electricity than it can use, forcing grid operators to pay wind farms to shut down, a process called curtailment. Those costs get passed right on to you. Then, just hours later, when the wind drops and everyone gets home from work, the grid can be plunged into a deficit. At that point, the UK has to fire up its old, expensive, and dirty gas-fired power plants to keep the lights on. This isn't just inefficient, it threatens the stability of the entire network. For years, the answer has been short-term storage, mostly using lithium-ion batteries. You see them in industrial parks, rows of humming white containers. They're great for providing quick bursts of power to smooth out small bumps, but they're a band-aid, not a cure. The UK's battery fleet has an average duration of just over 1 hour. They can't bridge the gap for long windless nights, or worse, the calm, gray winter weeks where renewable generation can plummet for days. This is the UK's energy dilemma, a massive multi-billion-pound problem that demands a solution on a totally different scale. The country needs a way to bottle the wind and bank the sun, not for minutes or hours, but for days, and it needs it now. Enter the Loch Earba Pumped Storage Hydro Project. While a lot of attention has been on the well-known Choirglass project, another, even larger scheme has been approved, set to be the biggest of its kind ever built in the UK. Located deep in the Central Highlands, the Earba project isn't just an upgrade. It's a total reimagining of what energy storage can be. The idea, in principle, is beautifully simple and over a century old. It's a giant water battery. Here's how it works. The project uses two existing lochs, Loch Earba and Loch Leamhain, which sit at different heights on the edge of the Cairngorms National Park. When there's a surplus of power on the grid, say on a windy night when demand is low, the system uses that cheap electricity to power huge, reversible turbines. These turbines pump massive amounts of water from the lower reservoir, Loch Earba, uphill to the upper reservoir, Loch Leamhain. The water is stored there, a massive lake of potential energy waiting to be released. Then, when the country needs power, the process is reversed. The gates open and gravity sends the water hurtling back down through tunnels carved deep inside a mountain. The water spins the same turbines, which now act as generators, producing a huge surge of electricity for the national grid. The project is designed for an installed capacity of 1.8 gigawatts and a storage capacity of 40 gigawatt hours. To put that in perspective, 1.8 gigawatts is enough power to supply around 1.4 million homes. And its storage capacity means it can deliver that power at full blast for 22 hours straight. This isn't just long-duration storage. This is marathon-duration storage. The developer, Gilkes Energy, points out that the energy stored is comparable to 400 typical large-scale battery systems combined. To pull this off, the engineering has to be on a pharaonic scale. The plans involve building huge new dams to raise the water levels of both lochs. The upper reservoir at Loch Leamhain will be raised by as much as 75 meters. Connecting the two will be a series of tunnels, roughly 3 kilometers long, bored straight through the mountain that separates them. Deep inside that mountain, a vast cavern will be excavated to house the powerhouse and its giant turbines, an underground cathedral of engineering. It's an incredible plan for a modern problem. But it's also a gamble of epic proportions, and this is where the green dream collides with a harsh, expensive reality. Building a megaproject is never easy, but building one in the remote, geologically complex, and environmentally sensitive Scottish Highlands is a whole other level of difficulty. The Earba project is set to be an engineering marvel, but it could just as easily become an engineering nightmare. The first hurdle is the sheer scale of the construction. Building dams to raise natural lochs is a monumental task. These aren't small weirs. They are massive structures that have to withstand immense pressure forever. Any miscalculation, any unforeseen geological weakness, and the consequences would be catastrophic. Then there are the tunnels. Boring 3-kilometer-long waterways through a mountain is a high-risk venture. Engineers will be fighting against immense rock and water pressure in a remote location where just moving heavy machinery and materials is a logistical labyrinth. On top of that, the project needs new roads, a bridge over the River Speen, and aqueducts to manage local water systems. This leads to the second major risk, the unknown. You can do surveys and drill boreholes, but you never really know what you're dealing with until you start digging. Unexpected geology is the bane of tunnelers and a primary reason for cost and schedule overruns. This risk is magnified by a critical fact. No pumped hydro project on this scale has been built in the UK for over 50 years. The institutional knowledge and specialist workforce have largely disappeared. Gilkes Energy has admitted this is a challenge, stating it's essential to work with suppliers to rebuild that capacity. But that takes time and money. It means training a new generation of engineers and potentially relying on a few specialist international firms. A project this size will need around 500 workers on site for a construction period of 6 to 7 years. Housing them, feeding them, and getting them to a remote highland site every day is a project in itself. The plans even include peatland and woodland restoration to offset the environmental impact, adding yet another layer of complexity. Every single element is a potential point of failure, a source of delay, and a reason for the budget to spiral. If the engineering challenges of the Loch Earba project are daunting, the financial ones are downright terrifying. The United Kingdom's history with large-scale infrastructure projects is marked by ambition, overspending, and disappointment. It dreams big but consistently fails to control costs. The list of fiscal disasters reads like a warning label for optimism. The HS2 high-speed rail line, once priced at £56 billion, has ballooned to over £106 billion, and even that may not be final. Hinkley Point C, the nuclear power station touted as a cornerstone of clean energy, has seen its cost rise from £18 billion to more than £46 billion. London's Crossrail, rebranded as the Elizabeth Line, arrived years late and billions over budget. Even Scotland's Parliament, once expected to cost under £40 million, ended up at a staggering £414 million. These are not anomalies, but symptoms of a deeper problem. The Happy Day estimate. It's an optimistic projection designed to secure political approval, knowing full well that the real figure will be much higher. Against this backdrop, the question for Loch Earba isn't if it will exceed its budget, but by how much. For now, developer Gilkes Energy has achieved a major milestone by securing planning consent. But as they've admitted, the real work begins now. The challenge ahead is transforming a visionary design into a fully costed and financeable project. The company is currently seeking substantial capital, and that's where government policy becomes crucial. To encourage private investment in massive energy infrastructure, the UK government and Ofgem have extended their cap and floor framework, previously used for international power cables, to energy storage. This system guarantees a minimum revenue floor to protect projects from bankruptcy, while a maximum cap ensures excessive profits are returned to consumers. It's designed to balance risk and reward, offering the financial stability investors need to commit billions to a project that won't pay off for nearly a decade. In late 2025, the Earba project cleared an important hurdle when it was shortlisted for the next phase of this support scheme. It sent a confident signal to the market, suggesting the project might actually be bankable. but the framework is still untested for pumped hydro on this scale. Its entire financial viability depends on this policy functioning as intended. Any shift in government, regulation, or public sentiment could destabilize the investment. With a construction period of 6 to 7 years, spanning multiple administrations and economic cycles, the risks remain immense. Ironically, the national grid, the very system Loch Earba is meant to protect, could also be its greatest vulnerability. The project is designed to stabilize the grid, yet connecting a 1.8 gigawatt power station in a remote Highland valley poses serious logistical and operational challenges. The first issue is transmission. Power generated deep in the Highlands must travel hundreds of miles to the population centers of southern Britain. While the site was chosen partly for its grid access, feeding in 1.8 gigawatts is an enormous load. It could strain existing infrastructure, and any bottleneck might leave this giant battery unable to deliver energy precisely when it's needed most. Then comes the matter of forecasting. For the system to operate efficiently, it must anticipate when to pump and when to generate, predicting renewable output and national demand with growing accuracy. Get it wrong, and the economics collapse. The project could end up consuming costly electricity to pump water uphill, only to discover later that there's no demand for the stored power. Or worse, find the upper reservoir empty during a supply shortfall. There's also the danger of centralization. With 40 gigawatt hours of storage concentrated in one facility, the UK is placing a massive share of its energy security in a single basket. The underground design promises resilience, but any catastrophic event, mechanical failure, tunnel collapse, or fire, could disable the plant for months, if not years. The result would be an immediate and severe blow to grid stability. In attempting to solve the problem of renewable intermittency, the country may be creating a new single point of failure. With all these uncertainties, it's reasonable to ask, why take the risk at all? Supporters of the project argue that the real gamble would be not to build it. The transition to a renewable grid is not optional. It's legally mandated by the UK's net zero targets and essential for long-term economic and environmental survival. Without large-scale, long-duration energy storage, that transition will collapse. Without it, Britain would either need to massively overbuild wind and solar farms, wasting vast amounts of energy, or remain tethered to fossil fuels for decades, relying on gas to balance the grid. From this perspective, Loch Earba is not a luxury. It's the keystone of the entire green economy. The cap and floor mechanism, while new for storage, has already attracted billions for major interconnectors. Extending it to hydro storage is a logical evolution, bridging the gap between public necessity and private investment. It acknowledges that these projects, while crucial, are simply too capital-intensive to finance through the market alone. Moreover, the Highlands themselves offer a natural advantage. The steep terrain, deep lochs, and abundant rainfall make this one of the best hydro sites in Europe. Nature has already done half the work. Economically, the benefits could ripple across generations. Construction will create hundreds of skilled jobs in the Highlands, while a supporting supply chain could sustain industries across the UK. By reducing dependence on imported gas and stabilizing electricity prices, the project promises to improve national energy security and lower long-term consumer costs. Planning approval has already been granted, and the project's inclusion in the government support shortlist indicates serious momentum. Advocates insist that this is a moment demanding courage, a rare chance to invest boldly in infrastructure that could power the country for the next century. In one vision of the future, this remote Highland Valley becomes the beating heart of a cleaner, greener Britain, its twin lochs pulsing with stored energy, sustaining a stable and independent grid. It becomes a monument to ambition fulfilled, to engineering triumph, and to a country that finally overcame its infrastructure curse. But another vision exists too, a darker one. In this version, Loch Earba joins the long list of failed megaprojects, cost overruns, and technical failures. The Earba project embodies a paradox. It's both the solution and the risk, the leap of faith and the safety net, the embodiment of Britain's determination to lead the green revolution and its fear of repeating old mistakes. Whether it becomes a masterstroke of sustainable engineering or a cautionary tale of overreach remains to be seen. For now, the only certainty is uncertainty. Loch Earba stands as a test not just of technology and finance, but of vision and resolve. Is this the bold step Britain must take toward a renewable future, or another costly gamble waiting to implode? The answer, as always, will emerge with time.